Hello, I'm Dr. Karen Janes. I'm an energy healer and psychologist in the UK. Welcome to the Life Made Easier podcast, where you will find ancient wisdom with a modern approach. In each episode, we share tips and tricks from the world of energy healing to help you make your life easier in simple and practical ways.
Hi, everybody. I'm also Dr. Tiffany Hunter. I'm an energy healer in the Sunshine State of Florida, the United States. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the concept of manifesting, something that's probably familiar to most of you, if not all of you. It's the idea that we can create what happens to ourselves in our lives, that we can bring things to us, and that we can keep away unwanted things. And really today we've decided to divide this topic into two episodes. And the one that we're going to cover today is about the myths around it, the myths and the misinformation about it. And then in the next episode, we're going to do a deep dive into how do you do it successfully.
Yeah, I think you're right that it's really an important topic. It's become quite a buzzword in recent years. I think lots of people will probably be familiar with books like The Power of Positive Thinking or The Secret, or just the idea of the law of attraction. And we wanted to just take a minute to say, to kind of, if in case it's a concept that you're not familiar with, it's something which generally through certain specific practices, and these can include things like prayer, mental focus, particular types of meditation, goal setting, journaling, things like that. We use those tools to try and bring good things to us, attract good things into our lives, make good things happen, bring things we're wanting into our lives. Through our sort of focus and positive thinking. And as Tiffany says, also reduce the bad things, try to stop certain things happening or reduce them.
Yeah, you make me think we should maybe even get more specific about that, because prayer, for example, for some people, praying to God to bring them something would not count as a manifestation as such. Because in that instance, it would be God that's bringing it to you. But I think I'm right in thinking for the majority of people, the idea of manifesting is that we are using our own energy to bring something to us. Ourselves. And obviously for those that have a relationship with God, that might be with God's blessing or with, God's will. But the reason that that's important for this episode is because the mechanism underneath that people are referring to is the energetic experience of, or I should say the experience of using the energetics to create a vibration, create a frequency, target and identify what that frequency is out in the world, match them up so it's drawn to us. It's almost like we're a magnet for those things because of the energy that we're creating in ourselves. And for most people, it's usually it's often money and a partner. Say in my experience are the two things that I see people most trying to manifest in their lives.
Yeah, or things that will bring them money, like
Yes,
a
right,
new job,
right.
or yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. But the idea behind it is that that you're manifesting it because you're creating this experience in yourself through activities, creates an energetic vibration, creates focus, and then that comes and almost kind of finds you, like you're a little beacon of light.
Yeah, one of the things, although we really wanted to talk today about the, as Tiffany said, the myths, and the I guess in a way the times that it can go wrong. I think we really want to be clear that there is value in these things. I mean, if you've ever consulted a business coach or a life coach or somebody who works in that kind of way, they will almost certainly have talked to you about something along the lines of really creating a vision for where it is you're trying to get to, what you want to achieve in your life. So there is value in it. It's just about how can we understand more about the actual mechanism of how it might work, and then how to do it better, and how to not, cause ourselves more problems if it doesn't work. Because one of the reasons, again, we wanted to talk about this topic is we suspect that for most people listening, if you have tried any of these techniques to try and manifest, to draw something to you in your life, there's a very good chance that it hasn't always worked the way you hoped. Maybe it's never worked the way you hoped or as fast as you would have liked, but it may be that it feels a bit hit and miss. Commonly, Tiffany and I both do healing work. So commonly clients in our healing practice talk about the struggle of feeling they're doing all the right things, they're doing their meditation, they're doing their affirmations, they're focusing on things, and they're still not managing to create or bring to them whatever it is they're trying to do. And, you could say, well, at best, you haven't lost anything. But I think the problem with it is it can really lead to people becoming quite despairing, blaming themselves, really feeling then that either they're not doing it right or well enough, or maybe, worse than that, maybe, what if I just don't deserve this thing? And I'm a bad person because I can't do this right, or because it's not coming to me. And that's, I think, a really important reason why we wanted to talk more about this today.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to watch people put so much effort and intention and commitment and have so much optimism, and then not only do they have the pain of it not succeeding the way that they want to, but then there's the added pain of blaming themselves. It's
Yeah.
really torturous. And I think there's value, obviously we think there's value in spending time talking about why it doesn't work as often as it could, because in breaking down that process, there's so much understanding of energy that comes with that, right? Like hopefully in this podcast you'll be listening to us break that down and go, oh right, that makes sense, that's why that doesn't work. And that is the point of what we're trying to do here is support people to have energy information that they can then use, and you can apply that to other things as well. I think when it comes to this, it's a classic example of simple is not easy, right? It's such a simple idea. You focus on something, you generate energy to something, and then that thing comes and finds you. And of course, nothing. It's not that easy to do. And the other aspect to it that comes up a lot is people have an idea that you need to keep your energy frequency high. You have to be positive, and your frequency has to be high. So if you're negative or you've got a low frequency of energy, then you're going to attract negative and unwanted things. And again, as Karen put so eloquently, when that doesn't happen, people often think that they're doing it wrong, or that they don't deserve what's happening to them, or that there's something broken for them. Like, why does this work for everybody else? Why I can look in, why when I do my affirmations every day, nothing happens, but when my friend does it, all these things keep happening, right? And the conclusion is, well, there's something wrong with me, and there's something wrong with that I don't deserve that. But it's not true. It's much more mechanical than that, and we're going to go through it. But I want to go back just for a second, and I'm sorry I got distracted about this high and low frequency thing. So, because it's prevalent, it's kind of prevalent everywhere. And when people talk about that, what they're usually talking about, from the best that I can understand, is that when something is high, it's good. And when something is low, it's bad, right? So kombucha and herbal tea is high frequency activities. Alcohol and caffeine are low frequency activities, right? Meditation is high, watching television is low. I think people can also refer it to an internal state. So feelings of gratitude create high frequencies, high vibrations, and feeling worried are low vibrations. And the idea being that you want to avoid the low ones and the negative ones, and you want to focus and keep pushing yourself to do high ones and positive ones.
Yeah, you really make me think about again, I think this is something that is going to come up, or has come up and will come up frequently in a lot of things we talk about. The human tendency to be quite binary in our thinking, to really categorize into this or this. And we tend to, as humans, divide the world into good and bad, positive and negative, right and wrong. And the reality is that many things are much more nuanced, and there will always be exceptions and gray areas. And the problem again with having that, very binary, it's right or it's wrong, and there's no in between, is where that leaves you frequently is that if I'm not getting it right, then there's something wrong with me. um, uh, I'm not doing it well enough. I don't deserve it. Those things we've been talking about. And if we can just work out how to manifest well enough and be a good enough person with a high enough frequency, then we'll succeed. And our success is, it will be the marker of that. And really, I think it's humans tend to be drawn to things that we feel we can take control of and understand and make sense of. So making things one or the other can give us a sense of feeling more in control. But the reality might not actually be that it really is making us more in control.
Yeah, that's so so true. It's so true. Yeah. So Karen and I at some point, well, by the time you're listening to this, will have done a podcast on defining terms in the world of energy, a kind of glossary, so to speak. So I'm going to be a bit more brief here. But again, when people talk about their energy being high or low, when they talk about their energy, it's not clear to me if people are talking about their body, their soul, their consciousness. It seems to be more vague than that. It seems to be this kind of vague, more nebulous idea of just generalized energy. And it also seems to be a value system, right? Value judgment, what's good, what's bad, but there's no subtlety or context to it. So like if I go back to my previous example, alcohol shared in celebration is really much more positively generating in all kinds of ways than alcohol consumed to avoid emotions, right? And it makes a difference, these contexts and these subtleties. And where how that relates to the myths and the misinformation about manifesting is that the restrictiveness and the judgment value and the constant evaluation of good or bad, high or low, in and of itself is going to prevent the energy from flowing to be successful in your manifestation. Right. And
I think
trying not to divide things that way and allow things to be more contextual and allow things to be, frankly, much more kinder to ourselves will actually flow the energy much, much more to success than dividing the world in this binary way.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people talk about that, things we need to do to create a higher vibration. It's like we're some kind of transcendent state that is, I think you're right, is absolutely a value judgment that, you're a bad person if you eat this or don't eat this or drink this or don't drink that or watch TV or, and it's just not the case that I don't believe it's the case that things are that black and white. Is it always wrong in every situation to, drink caffeine or something caffeinated? Or, I just think we can be too unkind to ourselves. And we're also setting ourselves a standard that for most of us, we're not going to be able to maintain for any significant length of time. At some point, we will trip up, and then where do we leave ourselves with kind of judging ourselves for, I didn't, oh no, I ate some sugar today, or I whatever rule it is we've set ourselves. And it also occurs to me that this idea of having a higher, more, I think it's often associated with kind of a purer sort of energy frequency, something that's like superior to someone with a lower energy frequency. How do we even measure that? We don't have it's not like you can step on the bathroom scales and they tell you what your body mass is. And it really seems like the evidence of how you define someone as having a higher energy of frequency, certainly in relation to this topic of manifesting things, is measured by the degree of success you've had, which is kind of a bit of a backwards way of doing it. So if I manage to successfully manifest something, that must mean I'm doing enough to keep my energy high enough or my frequency vibration high enough in order to bring this good thing into my life. And if I haven't succeeded, then the converse is true. So, that must mean I'm doing something wrong or I'm not good enough or whatever. And it's just, there's so much that is outside our control that we and this will be really interesting when we get onto the next topic of actually talking more about how we can do this, so I hope it doesn't feel too tantalizing as we're talking about this now, that we're not actually telling you, so what do I do? We absolutely need to be able to imagine, visualize, and focus on our desires, but we also need a more consistent approach to success than just kind of saying, well, if I do this and do that, if I carry out these activities, I do my journaling, I do my affirmations, I'm trying to eat all the right foods and whatever, I'm trying to attract these things. I think it is more complicated than that, and we, as always in all our work, want to really encourage a way of going about things that is kinder and more compassionate and helps you to be gentler with yourself.
Yeah, and hopefully this whole conversation and kind of teasing this out a little bit gives you an opportunity to see if there's other places in your life that you might be doing this to yourself. Because I guarantee you, this does not make your life easier. This does not make my life easier. This doesn't make anybody's life easier. And if there's a surefire way to take and constrict and suppress down and hold on to energy so that it can't do what we want it to do, it can't flow to the places we want it to flow to, it can't manifest, it can't do anything but just this would do it. This would probably do it. Right? It absolutely leads to self-judgment, it leads to judging of others, it leads to it's not a flowy, generous state to live in, and it certainly doesn't help to manifest anything, to be dividing the world up into good, bad, high, low, et cetera, et cetera. And as we have said, it's heartbreaking to watch people who deserve to get what they want, who are willing to put the work in, not be able to get there. So that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah, so in case you haven't quite gathered, successful manifestation is really not just about how supposedly high our energy vibration is, or how hard we're trying, or absolutely our worthiness. So that leads us to then, well, what are the other reasons that might make it work less effectively or not work at all? And one of the big things that we kind of think is really important here is that it's very easy particularly with the kind of practices that tend to be used. So journaling, even meditation, affirmations, things like that. It's very easy to do them in a way that makes them purely a mental activity and to not really engage the energy part of us. So some of our other podcasts cover this topic in a bit more detail, but just to be brief here, humans are essentially made of three parts: a mind, a body, and an energy system. And if we're only doing something, you may be familiar, for example, like an athlete, people talk, really successful athletes are engaging their mind, as it's not all about their body. And the mindset that someone has when they approach a competition or something is going to be just as important as their physical fitness and energy levels and that kind of stuff. So with anything we're trying to do, we really want to look at, well, which parts of me do I need to really focus on here? And absolutely, we need to use our minds when we're doing something like manifesting. But the most important part is the energetic part of us. And you can think of it as like the mind is just the steering wheel. So that is important. It's really important. But the energy is the engine behind that. And it's no point sitting in a stationary car steering away if you haven't turned on the engine, or if the engine isn't working or engaged properly.
Yeah. And just to say that we are dividing ourselves up into three parts as a mean to understand ourselves and as a model to start having these conversations with y'all. But did you hear me say y'all? Say I've been
I
down
did.
south in
I
Florida.
did.
I know I've been in
Yeah.
Florida for 3 years. I've already picked up a y'all. To have these conversations, it makes it an easier model, but it's just to acknowledge we can't really fully separate these things from each other. It's a little like separating taste and smell. It's not going to happen. But by primarily understanding which part is best used in what situation, and most importantly, and we're going to get to that in these podcasts, how to choose ourselves which part we're using so that it's not a random process, is super helpful. So I can sit and I can say to myself, I want a pony, I want a pony, I want a pony, 1,000 times a day. But if I'm just using my mind, it's only ever going to be a thought in my mind. And that's going to be the same if I imagine myself winning an award or enjoying a date or all of these images that I'm focused on. They're just mental. Journaling, just mental. All of these activities generate lots and lots of mental energy. But here's the thing, mental energy doesn't manifest. We should turn that into a bumper sticker. Mental energy doesn't manifest, right? So as Karen gave us this beautiful image, if you're sitting in the car, it doesn't matter how many times you're furiously moving your steering wheel back and forth. If you're just using your mind, if you're not engaging the engine, that car isn't going anywhere.
For the sake of full transparency, I think you actually came up originally with that idea of the car and the engine. So I feel like I can't claim that, but I'm very happy to have said it.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Another key thing, which I think, so the engaging that energy part of us is really important. But another key part of us, which is sort of it's kind of a little bit outside the three main parts that we've talked about with the physical body, the mind, and the energy system, because it kind of is involved in all of those parts, is our emotions. And our emotions about things can really get in the way of successful manifesting, as they can in many areas of our lives. They can cause us problems if we're not kind of interacting with our emotions, if you like, in a way that's really healthy and positive and allows them to move and be. So, but before I go any further with that, I really want to underline in capital letters in super bold that this is not another thing to blame ourselves for. We will naturally, as human beings, have internal conflicts, fears, worries, guilt, ideas about what we should have, what we deserve, all of that stuff. There are going to be those feelings. And the important part is really not that we don't have those feelings, but that we can engage those feelings in a more positive way so that they don't end up like that, clamping down on our emotions, either trying to convince ourselves we're not having them or stopping ourselves from expressing them, sometimes even stopping ourselves from knowing about them. That requires effort and it stifles the flow of both our emotions, but the movement of energy in our bodies. So that constriction will make it harder to succeed. And we're going to go into that into much more detail in the next episode, when we talk about what do you do with that. But I think it was really important we just flag that up here, because that's a key, alongside the engaging our energy, that's another key thing, which I think frequently gets in the way of people manifesting as they would want to.
Yeah, and I think it really links back to where we started this. The affirmation that somebody might choose would be, I deserve to have a pony. And that's how they're dealing with their feelings. I know it's all about the pony, right?
I really do deserve
Ironically,
to have
I've
a
never owned
pony.
a horse, and you have. So
I really deserve to have a pony.
you do deserve to have a pony. If I'm saying I deserve to have a pony as my means of dealing with feelings of undeservedness, right? I'm clamping down and I'm pushing down on the feelings of undeservedness. And in that way, what I'm trying to do, what I'm telling myself I'm doing, is transforming those challenging emotions of undeservedness into something positive. And that positiveness has the high frequency that we're looking for. And part of what we're saying is that's not working the way that you're probably wanting it to work, because it doesn't really work. Nothing about that process has actually transformed the challenging emotions. And what's happening is that instead it's been constricted, it's been suppressed, and we've just got all the judgment of labeling ourselves as we tend to do. So what we are going to talk about, and when we get on to the next episode, is how do we actually take those that energy and transform it into something that not only we don't want to suppress, but we want to release and we want to use to strengthen and clarify the manifestation process to actually be a bigger engine, because some of those feels are big feels, guys, right? Why are we trying to suppress them or transmute them into something else? Let's grab them and use them to make our energy make our engines even bigger, right? Because this isn't going to be done with the mind alone.
I feel like we're kind of coming to the end of this podcast, opening up a whole other can of worms, and we could dive down into this deep rabbit hole about just how many ideas we have in the world about good and bad energy, and really there is just energy. And I was actually talking today with my someone I see for supervision about how, you know, somebody was releasing some energy that came from a very difficult traumatic experience, and it didn't have the impact on me when I felt it that it was having on this person, because it's not my thing. It's not personal to me. It's not something I specifically experienced. So it's just energy. And that really is, you know, it's how we use it that is important. And I feel like now I'm itching to get onto the what do we do about all these things that we've told people make manifesting possible. But without this becoming a super long topic, we should pause there. And so hopefully you've managed to kind of digest some of what we've talked about, and if nothing else, come away from this a little bit kinder to yourself if you've ever had an experience of manifesting didn't work very well for me, or it didn't work at all. Hopefully this has helped highlight just some of the ways that you might have, you know, just tripped up a bit because you didn't understand properly or know the things that could get in the way.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. Send us your comments and your questions because we want to know about them. We can start getting into people's specific experiences because, you know, we're all going to learn better from each other. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, I'm Carol Smith, the producer of the Life Made Easier podcast. We hope today's episode gave you some meaningful tools and takeaways to help make your life feel a little lighter. You've reached the end of this episode, but not the end of the ways that you can support us. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, follow us on social media, and check out our Patreon for extra content and ways you can go deeper with us. There's also a whole library of episodes waiting for you to help increase your energy intelligence. Take care, and we'll see you on the next Life Made Easier.